Welcome everyone to the session 3 of the Mahasatipatthana Sutta. So we will start by reciting Namo Tassa 3 times together. First, I will share screen. Okay, so let's recite together. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Homage to the sublime, the victorious, and the totally self-enlightened one. Okay, welcome everyone. Today we are going to continue with the general introduction of the four Mahasatipatthana, and let's go directly to the sutta. So last week we have finished with the first phrase here, Kaye kaya nupasi viharati atapi sampajano satima. So last week we saw the different meaning of ardent, clear comprehending, and mindful, as well as Vinaya Loke Abhija Domanasam. So today we're going to start with the general introduction of the contemplation of feeling. So we start with Vedana Su Vedana Nupasi Viharati. He dwells contemplating the feeling in the feelings. Now here it's going to be more easy because we have already seen the contemplation of the body. So in the same way, we just apply it to the different foundations here. So here with the contemplation of feeling, we are to contemplate the feeling, mental feelings, as mental feeling in mental feeling, and not as body or consciousness, nor Dhamma in the feeling. So here, Vedana Su means in the mental feeling. So there are 3 kinds of mental feelings, which is the pleasant mental feeling, unpleasant, and neither pleasant nor unpleasant feeling. So meditators are to be aware of any of these feelings that are present at the present moment. Last time, Delawa mentioned that Vedana is a little bit confusing, no? So I think it's worth taking a little time to explain it a little bit more here to see if it becomes a little bit more clear for all of us. We'll talk a little bit about Vedana. What is Vedana? So Vedana is actually a universal cetasika, universal mental factor, which arises together with any kind of citta. So that means whatever kind of consciousness that arises, it always associates with some kind of mental feeling, some kind of Vedana. So the mental factor which experience the object as either pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral is called Vedana, this mental factor. Now in the Buddha's teaching, when we want to understand something clearer, we look at the different aspects of that ultimate reality. We'll look at the characteristic, the function, the manifestation, and the proximate cause of that specific reality. And this is called the 4 devices. So now let's take a look at the 4 devices of Vedana and see what is the characteristic of Vedana. So it is said that the characteristic of Vedana is to feel and to experience. And its function is to experience fully the desirable or the undesirable aspect of the object. And its manifestation is giving taste to other mental factors. And its proximate cause is contact. So what does it mean by characteristic? Now, characteristic here means the individual characteristic of that specific ultimate reality. So here we are looking at Vedana, this mental factor. So mental factor is characteristic. What is it? It is to feel and to experience. It is its characteristic that is peculiar only to mental feeling. So each ultimate reality have their own individual characteristic. Understanding these 4 things, these 4 devices is very important, especially for Vipassana meditation. Because when we say we are to understand Nama and Rupa, we are to understand the individual characteristic of each of these ultimate reality, no? Either mind or matter. So this characteristic is the individual characteristic when we are talking about that understanding, the Vipassana understanding. Sometimes in the meditator's mind, the function may be more clear, and sometimes the characteristic may be more clear, and sometimes the manifestation or the proximate cause. So one of these will be more prominent in the mind of the meditator at that moment. No? So we can observe either of these different factors in order to understand more about this mental factor or this ultimate reality, whatever we are observing. So these four devices are very important for Vipassana meditation. So now we see Vedana, what does it do? Its function is to fully experience the either desirable or undesirable aspect of the object. So whatever object that chitta or consciousness take, the Vedana is in charge of fully experiencing it. So an example being given by ancient teachers, they say that Vedana is compared to the king who thoroughly enjoys the taste of a feast. Because other mental factors that arise together at at the same consciousness, they also feel, but their feeling is minimal. So it is compared to the chef who prepare the king's feast. So the king is the one who really fully enjoy or experience the feast, while the chef, he only know the taste while he's cooking and just trying a little bit of it. So not fully enjoying the experience, right? Okay, so Vedana is the mental factor that fully experience the object. In the manual of the Abhidhamma, 5 kinds of Vedana is explained. So here we see we have pleasant, somanasa, unpleasant, domanasa, and upekkha, neutral, as well as 2 more that is related to the body sense. The first one is called sukha, so pleasant mental feeling experienced through the body sense. And then there is another type of Vedana that is called dukkha, unpleasant mental feeling experienced through the body sense. Now, the body actually do not feel anything. It is the mind which feels and experiences the object, right? But it feels through contact with external objects through the body. So in this case, sukha and dukkha are feelings that arises through the touching sense, Then how about the eye, let's say eye consciousness, eye, ear, nose, and tongue consciousness? When they arise, they also associate with some kind of mental feeling, but that feeling is always neutral in the very beginning, no? But then you say, no, it's not true, because when I eat something nice, I feel good, yeah? But according to the Abhidhamma, the mental process, it's very fast, and what we say an experience, it actually, billions of chitta has already arisen and ceased, one after the other, one after the other. So at the moment when the taste consciousness arise, so the tongue touch the food and the taste consciousness arise at that moment, it is neutral. Whatever the food may be, taste good or taste not good, it doesn't matter. It's always neutral. But then when the mind reacts to it, then I like it. If I like it, then pleasant mental feeling arise. If I don't like it, then unpleasant mental feeling arise. So those are somanasa or domanasa. So here, or if I neither like it or don't like it, let's say I just drink water, I don't feel that I extremely like it or don't like it. So it's just upekkha feeling is also possible in that sense. Okay, so until here, is it okay? Is it clear about the 4 senses, that when it is the 4 sense consciousness, except the body sense consciousness, it arises with neutral. It arises with neutral feeling, but only the body feeling arises with either comfortable or discomfortable feeling.
Just now you mentioned the tongue. The main function is to taste. Feeling is neutral. But I just want to add on because the tongue have different kind of nerves. It could have body nerve, so it also have a body contact. Could it be at the same time it has the body present feelings? Just for example, for the eyes contact with the light. You can see then the feeling consciousness appear. This context, as you mentioned, like a curtain. So the feeling is neutral. However, around the eye also have the body nerves besides the seeing nerve. So that means it also composed of the body contact and also will create the unpleasant when the light is too strong. So that is caused by unpleasantness. Is feeling is caused by the body sensation. Can I understand in this way? Is it possible?
Now, according to Abhidhamma, everything is very specific. Now, when we say that we have one experience, it seems like we experience everything together, no? Seems like we are talking, we are looking, we are listening, we are even eating, tasting, so smelling. Everything seems like, in our experience, seems like happens together. But when we look at it microscopically, so in Abhidhamma, each consciousness arises one after another. There is no two consciousness that arise at the same time. Okay, so only one at a time. One arise, pass away, and then another one arise, and then another one pass away. So when it is I consciousness, then it is only I consciousness. Body consciousness do not arise together with I consciousness at the same time. Not at the same time, no. Not at the same exact moment. So afterwards, after one I door process, then it's possible to have a body door process. That is possible, but not at the same time. So when we look at it very microscopically, when I consciousness arise, it always associates with a neutral mental feeling. And that's it. It cannot associate with anything else. And then when the I door process finished, many mind door process follows and understand what we are looking at, etc. Then maybe some body door process happens, and then think that the light is hurting the eye or whatever. That is another kind of process that is not looking, not seeing. Okay, so we have to separate them because in the Abhidhamma, we are talking about the very detail. We're looking at things microscopically. Okay, so for here, the important thing is just to understand that when eye consciousness, ear consciousness, nose consciousness, and tongue consciousness, I'm talking about one consciousness, one chitta here, not the whole process. When this consciousness arise, because they are vipaka chitta, they are resultant consciousness, and they always arise together with a neutral feeling. Then when we react to what we saw or what we heard or what we taste, then at that time, if we react to it with craving, let's say, then it may be associated with a pleasant mental feeling. So here, somanasa is possible. Or if we react to it with dosa, with aversion, then domanasa will be possible. Or we just be neutral with it, then upekkha also is possible. Yes. And then what I wanted to say is sukha and dukkha, they only arise specifically talking about technically in terms of Abhidhamma technically. That at that time sukha and dukkha mental feeling only arise associated with the body sense, with the touch. So when we touch something, it's either pleasant mental feeling through the body or unpleasant mental feeling through the body, because the body sense is gross. So it cannot be neutral. It cannot be neutral. It can only be either pleasant or unpleasant. Okay, so, but here we are only talking about sukha and dukkha in this way if the feeling is classified into 5, somanasa, sukha, domanasa, dukkha, and upekkha. Now we will see there are different classifications also. Zhenan, is that okay? Can we continue? Yeah, all right. Okay, thank you. So let's continue. Now we see that we have 5 kinds, but sometimes Vedana are classified into only 3 types. In that case, somanasa and sukha, they are grouped together as one group because of their characteristic, because of their nature, they are grouped together. So sukha, in this sense, it means both a pleasant mental feeling, purely mental, or the pleasant feeling that is due to the body sense. Then domanasa and dukkha is classified together in this category, which is called dukkha. So when we see dukkha here, then we have to understand that unpleasant mental feeling is also included. Then also unpleasant mental feeling due to the body sense is also included here. So domanasa and dukkha is included into one. And then the upekkha here, sometimes it is called adukkha sukha. So neither pleasant nor unpleasant, which is neutral, right? So if it is divided into 3, then it is sukha, dukkha, and adukkha sukha. Then here, important thing, sukha, when we see this word, don't think that it is only body. Mental feelings, purely mental, pleasant feelings also included in the same way for dukkha. Actually, when it is divided into 3, the mental feelings are still 5. They are just grouped together in different way, yeah? But it is the same mental feelings are here. Okay, sometimes the Buddha also, in some suttas, he explained there are only 2 types of Vedana. In that case, what happens here is that adukkha sukha is included into the sukha feeling. Is included here. So there is only sukha and dukkha. It's divided only into these 2 categories. Now, why does the Buddha explain it in so many different ways? That's because the Buddha always explained according to the mental quality or to the tendency or inclinations of his audience. So if at that time, it happens that the Buddha was talking to a person that understand feeling in this way, then the Buddha explained it only 2. So that person will understand that neutral feeling is included into the sukha because that person, according to him, it feels that way, right? Then if the person is more detailed, then Buddha maybe explained it according to 3 types or 5 types. So depending on the person. Now, in the suttas, you will also find that sometimes the Buddha said there is actually only 1 type of Vedana. And what is it? You all know, yeah? Dukkha. Yeah? All conditioned phenomena are dukkha. So in this case, we have to understand that not only dukkha, this dukkha does not only mean bodily uncomfortable feeling, but it includes all kinds of mental feeling, all kinds of feelings are included. Because here, this dukkha is the unsatisfactoriness, the dukkha, the unpleasant feeling of all conditioned things. So therefore, it is also explained that there is only 1 type, right? So mental feelings are usually classified into these 5 types, 3 types, 2 types, or 1 types, which at the end includes all the 5 types, just a different classification. And also, at some other suttas, you may find that the Buddha also sometimes explains Vedana with regard to the 6 senses. So in that case, there will be 6 kinds of feeling. Feeling associated with the seeing, feeling associated with the hearing, smelling, tasting, and body sense, and the mind. In Pali, it is called Chakku Samphassaja Vedana. Chakku, eye, sam, together, phassa, contact, ja, produced, Vedana, mental feeling. So mental feeling produced by the contact of the eye. So that is what it means, no? And then we have Sota Samphassaja Vedana, Ganda Samphassaja Vedana, Jiva Samphassaja Vedana, and Kaya Samphassaja Vedana, as well as Mano Samphassaja Vedana, with the mind, no? So Vedana are divided into these different categories, in the different suttas or in the Abhidhamma, but at the end, it just means the same thing. No? It's just a mental feeling that fully experiences the object that is taken by the citta, by the consciousness. Okay? So, I hope it's a little bit more clear about Vedana here. Then we will now go back to the sutta. So we are to contemplate, meditators are to contemplate the mental feeling, whatever mental feeling, pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. And here in this Mahasatipatthana Sutta, it is classified into three. So sukha, dukkha, and dukkha sukha, neither pleasant nor unpleasant mental feeling is divided into these 3 in this sutta. But we have to understand that it includes both purely mental feeling and also the mental feeling that is generated through the body touch. Okay. All right, so let's continue with the sutta. It says, ardent, clearly comprehending and mindful. So ānāpāna sampajano satima. Here is basically the same as kaya, as when we look at the contemplation of the body. Now, in this context of Vedana-nupassana, contemplation of mental feeling, we can understand ānāpāna as the effort put into the contemplating the feeling, the mental feeling. As we saw in Kaya-nupassana, is the same. The purpose of this effort is, again, to temporarily remove the 5 hindrances in order to attain concentration. So here, ānāpāna refers to the dedicated effort in contemplating the mental feeling with the intention of calming or removing kilesas, removing defilements. So that's ānāpāna, no? Ultimate reality, it's effort, viriya. Now, when we talked about the 4 foundations of mindfulness earlier, we mentioned that Ānāpāna, the contemplation of body, can be used for both samatha and vipassana, while Vedanānupassana, Cittanupassana, and Dhammanupassana, the contemplation of mental feeling, consciousness, and Dhamma, is purely explained for the sake of vipassana practice in this sutta, right? So here, since now we are talking about Vedanānupassana, then we are only referring to vipassana practice here. Therefore, sampajano, clear comprehension here, we do not contemplate the mental feeling as a concept here, but instead, we go directly to the practice of vipassana. So we need to understand the individual characteristic as well as the universal characteristics of Vedana, the Vedana that arises at that present moment. So this understanding, sampajano, means wisdom cetasika, as we saw in the contemplation of the body last week. Then we go to satima. Satima is mindfulness of the Vedana. So we stay focused on the object of the meditation without letting the mind wander, and that is called mindful, no? Being mindful, satima. Then when we have mindfulness together with effort or energy, then effort keeps mindfulness continuous. And with the continuous mindfulness, concentration is developed. And that is the samma samadhi that we mentioned last week, in the Noble Eightfold Path. So this is the type of concentration that we are aiming for in vipassana. So moment to moment, the mind is together with the meditation object. Although the object may change, but the mindfulness and concentration remained consistent. So here we have seen ardent, clearly comprehending, and mindful, atapi sampajano satima. So in the same way, 4 things are necessary for meditation. That's effort, mindfulness, concentration, and wisdom, understanding. Okay, so we move on to vinaya loke avijja domanasam, removing attachment and grief in the world. Now, when the Buddha said in the world here, in this context, again, it does not mean the world. Here, it means the feeling, the 3 types of mental feeling, right? Specifically, we are talking about the Vedanānupadana Khandha here. Vedana Upadana Khandha. So the mental feeling aggregate of clinging, the mental feeling aggregate which is object of clinging. That means meditators can cling to this Vedana with tanha, craving, mana, conceit, and ditthi, wrong view, right? So in the world here, we have to understand it. It means in regard to mental feeling. So that means we have to remove attachment and grief in regard to mental feeling. So by saying we remove attachment in regard to mental feeling or Vedana, that means we remove the delight in regard to the pleasant feeling that arises in the mind, whether it is through the 5 senses or purely through the mind. We remove the enjoyment, satisfaction, or delight on and attachment on those Vedana. It also means we remove the delight even in the neither pleasant nor unpleasant feeling. So like when we are simply drinking water, as I mentioned a little earlier, or just scrolling the phone, the feeling may be neither pleasant nor unpleasant. Then why do we say delight if it is not pleasant, right? So although we do not feel pleasant, but it is also not unpleasant. So we can say that it is a comfortable feeling, right? If it is not unpleasant, it is comfortable, it is okay, yeah? So can we take delight in comfort? Yes, we can, yeah? So therefore, we take it as we saw in the Vedana when it is classified into the 2 types together with the sukha feeling, no? So here we removed attachment towards even neither pleasant nor unpleasant feeling. This neither pleasant nor unpleasant is a little bit subtle, but we can relate to it in our own life, with this kind of example. We understand what it means. Okay, then by saying remove grief or aversion in regard to Vedana, that means we remove dissatisfaction in unpleasant mental feeling that arise, whether it is through the senses, I mean the body sense, or whether it is purely just the mind. Okay, so I think this is quite easy to understand because we have explained it quite in detail last week. So this is the freedom from satisfaction and dissatisfaction to withstand pleasant and unpleasant mental feeling, and accepting Vedana just as it is. No? So it is what is meant by removing attachment and aversion in regard to mental feeling. Okay, so that's the general introduction for Vedana for the contemplation of mental feeling. Then we go on to Citta Nupassana here. So the general introduction. Let's see. Citte citta nupasi viharati. He dwells contemplating the consciousness in the consciousness. So in the same way, we understand here when we contemplate the consciousness, we take only consciousness, observe it as consciousness in consciousness, and not as body, nor mental feeling, nor Dhamma in consciousness, no? Okay. Now, there are different kinds of consciousness. Some are accompanied by greed, hatred, and delusion, and with many other different kinds of mental defilements. Those are called the unwholesome consciousness, akusala citta. And some consciousness, they are associated or rooted in non-greed, non-hatred, and non-delusion. That's wisdom. So those are beautiful consciousness. There are many different kinds of consciousness that arise all the time in the mind. So here, the object of meditation is to observe the different type of consciousness that arise at the present moment, and to know them, whether it is with sloth and torpor, whether it is with anger, aversion, whether it is scattered, whether it is with lust, whether it is with attachment, whether the consciousness is concentrated, it is without attachment and with generosity, or it is with wisdom, without delusion. So whatever it may be, we are to notice whatever type of consciousness that is arising at the mind at that present moment. Whenever they arise, it is important to recognize them and to have no attachment nor aversion towards them. I'll give you an example, it's easier to understand. Say we notice consciousness with lust has arisen. So we acknowledge, but we do not follow the story or the craving. And at the same time, we do not blame ourselves. Oh, why does this kind of consciousness arise again? So we do not blame ourselves, or we do not want these types of consciousness to go away. No, so we don't get angry over, I don't want these kind of types of consciousness to arise. No, so in that case, we are interfering with the observation. What we do in observing consciousness is we only acknowledge, we know what is arising and what is passing, and we just watch it. We just watch it and see how it arises and then how it ceases by themselves, without following it and also without pushing it away. Now, sometimes it is easy to get lost, especially in the beginning when we observe consciousness. Sometimes when we know that something pleasant has arisen in the mind, and then observing, we fall into the thoughts. Then we go on to the story, and then we keep thinking about this thing, this and that, or a memory or anything. So in that case, if we fall into that, then it's not being mindful anymore. So that cannot be called contemplation of the mind anymore. So we have fallen into the story. There is no more mindfulness. So for it to be called contemplation of consciousness, we have always to keep mindfulness. Sati must be there. We must always know what is going on. When we lost mindfulness, then we have to start again, right? So the important thing, again, I will emphasize, is not to follow the story, nor to want it to go away. Sometimes when we see that the mind is very scattered, that is a lot of monkey mind, we call it, lots of thinking are arising, at that time, if we are observing the mind, then we just have to notice that the mind is thinking, and that's it. So thinking is not the problem, but the problem is that we think that thinking should not arise. And then we have aversion towards those thinking mind, and that's the problem. So Sayadaw U Tejaniya, he always said that we have to always step back. If it is thinking, it's okay. Now I observed if there is aversion towards this thinking. If there is aversion towards this thinking, now that thinking is not my object anymore. The object becomes that aversion. We first have to take care of that aversion. Then when there's no more aversion to that thinking, then we'll see that the mind maybe it has changed. Maybe it's not so much thinking anymore. It has been some other different types of mind state arise. And so we have to just know whatever is happening at the present moment. Okay, so again, with the contemplation of consciousness, Ātāpī, Sampajāno, and Satima, representing the 5 former paths of the Noble Eightfold Path that we talked about last week. And so all these are necessary for the contemplation of consciousness as well. Okay, then we move on to Vinaya Loke Abhijadomanasam. Here in the world, you may already imagine that it is not the world, but it is consciousness here. So specifically, it is talking about the consciousness aggregate, which is object of clinging here. So we have to understand this in the world to mean in regard to consciousness. Whatever type of consciousness it arises, we remove attachment and grief towards that. So that's the meaning here. Okay, so it's easy to understand. Then let's move on to the last foundation, which is Dhammanupasana. So here it says, Dhammesu Dhammanupasi Viharati. He dwells contemplating the Dhamma in the Dhammas. Now the word Dhamma denotes many things. It is the most difficult Pali word to translate into another language. So most of the time, we just keep it untranslated as just as Dhamma. But sometimes it is translated into English as mental object, in this case for the contemplation of Dhamma. Sayadaw Silananda said, although it is not altogether wrong, but it does not cover what is meant by Dhamma. So to better understand it, we will explain a little bit later when we get into details. Now we will just look at which types of Dhamma are being introduced in this category of contemplation of the Dhammas. In the Mahasatipatthana Sutta, in the Dhamma section, in the contemplation of the Dhamma section, the 5 nivaranas, the 5 mental hindrances, the 5 aggregates, the 6 internal and external bases, the 7 factors of enlightenment, as well as the 4 noble truths are mentioned as the Dhamma objects here. So later, when we get into that section, then we will talk about them in more details. Okay, so let's go back to the introduction, the general introduction. So here again, Ātāpī, Sampajāno, Satima, we are to understand them in the same way as the other foundations. So we're not going to repeat it again here. And Vinaya Loke Abhijadomanasam. Here in the world, it means the remaining 2 khandha, the remaining 2 aggregates here. So the perception aggregates and mental formation aggregates, which are subject to clinging, are meant here by the Dhamma. So here we need to understand the world means in regard to perception aggregate and mental formation aggregate. Now we will look at it a little bit in details if you are not familiar with the 5 aggregates. Now what we call a person is actually just nama and rupa, no? Mind and metta, mind and metta. And what is mind and metta? If we divide it into a little bit more detail, then mind can be divided into chitta and cetasika. And then cetasika can also be further divided into vedana khandha, the aggregate of mental feeling, the aggregate of perception, sanya kanda, sankhara kanda, the aggregate of mental formation, translated as mental formation. Well, there are 52 kinds of mental factors. We explained briefly last week. And here, Vedana is one cetasika, one mental factor, sanya is another. So here, sankhara means the remaining 50 cetasikas. So mind, chitta, vijnana, and 52 cetasika, and as well as rupa, is what we usually call me, or a person, or an individual, which is actually mind and matter. Now, for vipassana meditation, nama and rupa is the object of vipassana meditation. So that means the 5 aggregates of clinging are the object of vipassana meditation. Therefore, all these 5 aggregates are covered in these 4 foundations. Say, Rupa Kanda, it is addressed in Ānāpāna. When we see the contemplation of the body, we are to look at all, the world, loke, in that case, that means the Rupa Kanda, the aggregate of matter that is subject to clinging. So it's covered in the Ānāpāna section, contemplation of the body. And Vedana Kanda is covered in the contemplation of mental feeling. Then Vijnana Kanda, the aggregate of consciousness, all kinds of consciousness are covered in the contemplation of the mind, of consciousness, of chitta. Then the remaining 2, sanya and sankhara, perception aggregate and the mental formation aggregate, are included in the Dhamma, in the contemplation of the Dhamma. So all objects falls into this 4 satipatthana. So with the practice of this 4 satipatthana, everything, all kinds of nama and rupa is included. Okay, up till here, we have finished with the general introduction of the 4 foundations of the mindfulness, where sati is to be established. So we have seen Kaya-nupassana, Vedana-nupassana, Chitta-nupassana, and Dhamma-nupassana. We've only seen the very general introduction. We haven't gone into details, but then it will come soon. Okay, so let's take a quick look at the last paragraph that we just saw. Now we'll skip the Pali version and go directly to the English version. So the paragraph that we are looking at, it says what are the 4. Here in this teaching, bhikkhus, a bhikkhu dwells contemplating the body in the body. And then it says ardent, clearly comprehending and mindful, removing attachment and grief in the world. And then it repeats, but now it becomes feeling. So it contemplates feeling in the same way, consciousness in consciousness, Dhamma in Dhamma. How do we contemplate these 4? Ardent, clear, comprehending, and mindful. And then removing attachment and grief in the world. So here, in this brief introduction, we understand that we are to practice in the same way, whichever foundation it may be. We practiced the Noble Eightfold Path. We practiced the 5 former paths. And then we try to remove attachment and grief in regard to the 5 aggregates, to nama and rupa itself. Okay, so here, that's the brief statement of how to practice the 4 foundations of mindfulness. And from here onwards, the sutta will go into details of each foundation. And we will start with the Kaya-nupassana here. Okay, up to here, all good, everyone? For the general introduction? Yes? Okay. All right. So since it is a good stop here, why don't we take 5 minutes break, and coming back, we will start with the Kaya-nupassana. Okay? So we'll see you in 5 minutes. Okay, welcome back, everyone. So far, everyone good with the general introduction? Clear? Everything okay? Yeah? All right. So in this case, we will continue with the Kaya-nupassana. Now, officially, we are going to start with the first section. Now, in this Caraṇapāna, contemplation of the body, 14 topics are being taught here. So the first one is the ānāpāna, mindfulness of breathing. Then we have Iriyapata, the 4 postures, sampajanya, clear comprehension, patikula manasikara, repulsiveness of the body, dhatu manasikara, elements. Then we have 9 types of navasivatika, the 9 charnel ground contemplations. So altogether, 14 objects are being discussed in this Caraṇapāna section. Now, within these 14 objects, ānāpāna and the repulsiveness of body, so the breathing and the repulsiveness of the body, are intended for both samatha yanika and vipassana yanika. So that means the explanation will go to first explain how to attain jhana with this object and then how to change to vipassana. While the other objects, the 4 postures, clear comprehension, the elements, and the charnel ground contemplation, all these are directly for vipassana. So that is not for jhana. Although in some suttas, it is said that the 9 charnel ground contemplation are also good for samatha. Here in this sutta, it is especially explained for vipassana. Okay, so first we are going to start with ānāpāna. So you will see that the explanation, the coming explanation for mindfulness of breathing will include how to contemplate for jhana first, and then how to change to vipassana. So let's go to the sutta now. This section, it starts with Katenja bhikkhave bhikkhu kaye ānāpāna viharati. It starts with a question. The Buddha asked, and how, bhikkhus, does a bhikkhu dwell contemplating the body in the body? Then the Buddha will start explaining about some preparation for meditation before he starts introducing how to observe the breath. So let's see the next paragraph. Ida bhikkhave bhikkhu aranya gato va rukkha mula gato va sunyagara gato va nisidati. So let's see it part by part. Aranya gato, having gone to the forest, wa means or, rukkha mula gato, the foot of a tree, the root of a tree or the foot of a tree. Sunyagara gato means a secluded place. So first, the suitable place for meditation are being described here. Now the first one is a forest. Now forest just means any kind of forest that offers the bliss of seclusion. Since the place must be secluded, it should be a forest where nobody lives and it is a little bit away from the city or from the village, so it is not so noisy. Nowadays, it might be difficult to find such a place, but this kind of forest is mentioned as the first suitable place for meditation. And then the second place mentioned in this sutta is the foot of a tree. The foot of any tree is a suitable place for meditation, but it should be in a quiet forest. Then the third place mentioned is just any secluded place. It can be a cave, it can be a retreat, or it can even be a meditation room in your house, but it has to be secluded. So with regard to these places, seclusion is the most important condition, especially for samatha yanika, because here we are first to establish a very deep concentration, even for the attainment of jhana. So here it is mentioned that a secluded place is more suitable because there will be less distraction, right? And nowadays, maybe we cannot find a forest or places like that, or it might be dangerous to go alone to a forest or to a jungle like that. So a retreat center or a monastery may also provide a secluded environment for practice. But Sayadaw Silananda, he also mentioned that for those who are experienced and whose concentration has matured to some extent, any place is the right place for meditation. So we don't really have to go to a very far away place, or we don't have to go to a forest if we already have some kind of experience and concentration is matured. We can practice anywhere, especially for vipassana. Okay, so let's see, after finding a suitable place, what's next? Nisidati. Palankam abhujitva ujum kayam panidaya. So that means sits down, cross-legged, keeps his upper body erect. So with these words, the Buddha showed how we should prepare ourselves for meditation and what posture we should take. Here, the traditional posture of sitting cross-legged is mentioned. So people in the East are accustomed to sitting on the floor, so sitting cross-legged is quite natural for them. It is said that it is a very good posture for meditation, a peaceful one, which is neither conducive to idleness nor to agitation. Now, concerning sitting cross-legged, there are 3 different types or different forms of sitting. The first one is the full lotus posture, which is the most difficult to maintain. Without practice, we cannot sit in this posture for a long time. And then there is another one that is called the half lotus. And this half lotus posture is with one leg on top of the other, but they are not intertwined. So with this posture, it's a little bit easier, and meditators can sit a little bit longer in this posture. However, they may still feel some kind of pressure, and their feet may get numb after some time. And there is a third type of posture that is called the easy posture. Sometimes it is also called the Burmese posture. In this posture, we sit with one leg in front of and not on top of the other. So it is said that this posture may be the best, especially for beginners, because it is more comfortable. Beginners will be able to sit in this posture for a longer period of time without much discomfort. But some people will find it very painful to sit cross-legged, so painful that it can interfere with their practice of meditation. So for them, they may sit on a cushion, a little bench, or a chair, because it is very, very important that we do not force ourselves too much, because some degree of comfort is necessary to continue with the practice. In many sutta, for example, in the Anguttara Nikaya, the Buddha mentioned that when the mind is happy and at ease, then samadhi will grow naturally, and the mind will become steady and collected. In Pali, it says, Sukhino Chittam Samadhiyati. So if the body is in pain, and the mind cannot be at ease, so it will be very difficult to keep the mind stable or to cultivate concentration. So therefore, it is really not the most important thing how we sit, but it is important that we keep the mind at ease, that it is in a posture that is comfortable enough for it to stay alert and to keep mindful and build concentration. No? So it is more important than the posture itself. Sayadaw Tejaniya also mentioned many times that it is not actually the body posture that is doing the meditation, it is the mind that is doing the meditation. So even if a person can sit perfectly in the lotus posture without moving for 3 hours, but if the mind is, let's say, falling asleep or thinking about this and that, then that we cannot call that meditation. Meditation in Pali is called bhavana, or literally translated, it means cultivation. So if we are sitting there in a perfect posture, but thinking about this and that, then that cannot be called cultivation of the mind. We're not cultivating any good quality there. Or if we are sitting in a posture enduring pain for 3 hours, well, I'm not going to move and I must stay like this, and then the mind is just struggling with pain for 3 hours, then instead of cultivating good qualities, we may be cultivating a lot of anger, actually. So that is not that's not the aim for meditation. So posture is good only for keeping the body in a comfortable posture, that we don't have to be moving around so much, because for samatha it's important that we stay still, for the mind to stay still also. For vipassana it's different, but anyway, now we talk about samatha first. So it is good that we find a comfortable posture, but not too comfortable that we will fall asleep, right? So something in between, comfortable, and then the mind can stay at ease and cultivate mindfulness and concentration. Okay, so that's about posture, and a little bit more. The meditators is advised to keep their body straight when they sit. It is said that when the spine is straight, the vertebrae in the spine are resting one on top of the other. So painful feelings do not so readily arise as when our muscle, etc. are twisted. So keeping the upper body straight helps to reduce the possibility of bodily pain, so the mind can become unified in meditation and can attend to the growth of mindfulness. Okay, so after sitting cross-legged or sitting in a comfortable position and keeping the upper body straight, the meditator is to direct mindfulness towards the object of meditation. Parimukham satim upatapetva. So here, translated by Sayadaw U Silananda, directs mindfulness towards the object of meditation. That means the practitioner focus their mind on the object of meditation. And here, in this first object, the meditation object will be the breath. So we direct the mind towards the incoming and outgoing breath. So up to here, it is a preparation of what we have to do before we start with the ānāpāna contemplation of the breath. Then the sutta continues on how to observe the breath. Let's go. It says, So satowa asasati, so satowa pasasati. Ever mindful, he breathes in. Ever mindful, he breathes out. So first, when we practice ānāpāna, keep the mind on the in-breath and the out-breath mindfully. Concerning ānāpāna, the mindfulness of breathing, you will find extensive information in various texts, including this Satipatthana Sutta, and then also in the Ānāpānasati Sutta, the discourse on mindfulness of breathing. You will also find information in the Patisambhida Magga, the path of discrimination, or translated as the path of analytical discernment, as well as the Visuddhi Magga, which is the path of purification. Now, according to the Ānāpānasati Sutta, the discourse on mindfulness of breathing, there are 16 steps organized into 4 tetrads, each corresponding to one of the 4 foundations of mindfulness. But here, in this Satipatthana Sutta, only the first tetrad concerning the mindfulness of the body is mentioned. So therefore, here we will focus exclusively on this tetrad, which includes the following 4 steps. The first one, being mindful of the in-breath and out-breath. Then the second one, knowing whether the breath is long or short. Then making clear the entire breath body. And the fourth one, calming the gross breath. So what does it mean? Each of this one, we'll now go into detail and see them one by one. Okay, so let's see the first one, being mindful of the in-breath and the out-breath. Now we try to be aware of the breath as it enters and as it leaves the body through the nostril. So we just be aware of the breath at the most obvious place where it brushes against or touch either the top of the upper lip area or somewhere around the nostril. That place is what is called the touching point. In Pali, it's called phutokasa. That point where we can feel the breath passing in and out of the nostril is called the touching point. Now, the breath is to be observed only at this touching point, and we must not follow the breath into or out of the body. Sometimes some meditators feel the breath stronger in the chest area or in the abdomen area. But here in this section of the mindfulness of breathing, meditators are instructed to keep the attention on either the top of the upper lip or somewhere around the nostril where we can feel the breath passing in and out of the nostril. So focusing on the rising and falling of the abdomen is included in the next section, the Iddhiyapada Pava, about postures and bodily movements. So here in the Ānāpāna, it's exclusively only around this area. So here we should focus on 3 aspects, the touching point, the in-breath, and the out-breath. Now, in this first step, we must try to see the breath, the in-breath and the out-breath separately. So in-breath is in-breath, out-breath is out-breath. the in-breath is not existing at the time of the out-breath, and the out-breath is not existing at the time of the in-breath. So we don't breathe in and out at the same time. No? So it's only either one. It's either in or it's either out. And we are to know them, whether at this moment it is in or it is out. The aim of this step is to cultivate mindfulness. In Pali, this is referred to as satokari, cultivating mindfulness. So we begin the meditation by develop awareness on the breath. In this first step, we build up our mindfulness or sati by purposefully putting in effort. So some personal effort is necessary. In Pali, this is called pugala vyapara, which literally translates to personal effort or striving. Because in the beginning, this intentional effort is necessary or essential for developing mindfulness. Since the mind is not used to stay with one object, most of the time we are not very focused on one thing. So therefore, initially, we need to put in some effort to actively engage the mind with the breath or with the meditation object. Yeah. So that's the first step. We just keep being mindful of the breath in this way without thinking about anything else, only the breath. And if the mind wanders very frequently, we may help the mind stay with the breath by noting. We can count in this way. For example, when we know the in-breath, we say in one, inside the mind, out one, and then in two, out two, in three, out three, and so on. And this method is called ganana, counting. So we can count the breath from 1 to 10 and then start over again. It is suggested that we do not go over 10, so not 11, 12, 13, but also not less than 5. So either 1 to 5, 1 to 6, or until 1 to 10, we count. This method help us to establish mindfulness. But after we count the breaths for some time and then the mind settles down calmly with the breath, then we can stop the counting and just be mindful with the breath and without counting anymore. Paul Seattle suggests that after concentrating on the breath in this manner for at least half an hour, so say if we are able to keep the mind in the in-breath and out-breath for around half an hour, then we can move on to the second stage of the meditation. So let's look at what is the second stage. In the sutta it says, Digam va asasanto, digam asasamiti pajanati. Breathing in a long breath, he or she knows, I breathe in long. Digam va pasasanto, digam pasasamiti pajanati. Breathing out a long breath, he or she knows, I breathe out long. Rasam va asasanto, rasam asasamiti pajanati. Breathing in a short breath, he or she knows, I breathe in short. Rasam va pasasanto, rasam pasasamiti pajanati. Breathing out a short breath, he or she knows, I breathe out short. So this is the second step. Once we established awareness on the in-breath and out-breath, we move to this second step of recognizing whether the breath is long or short. Now, during the course of observing the breath, we sometimes happen to breathe long breaths, and then at that time, we are to know that the breath is long. And sometimes we happen to breathe short breaths, and at such times, we know that we are breathing short. That means we are not merely knowing whether it is in or out, but we also know whether it is long or short. So we are paying more attention to the breath now. Here, breathing long and short refers to the length in time, the duration of the breath. But it does not say that how long is considered long, how short is considered short. So it is said in the commentary that we should decide by ourselves what duration we call it long and what duration we call it short. And it is actually not very important whether the breath is long or short. What is important here is the knowing that we are calmly aware whether it is long or short. So this long and short only serve the purpose of cultivating mindfulness. So we are paying more attention and we know more about this breath. So whether it is long or whether it is short, it doesn't matter as long as we know how it is. And at this stage, that's all we need to do. Just know that much is good enough. But also here, it is important that we are observing only at the touching point, only in this area. And we should not deliberately breathe long or short. We just have to observe the breath, the natural breath. When it is long, it's long. When it's short, it's short. Okay, so let's go back to the sutta. If we compare the instruction of step 1, it states, ever mindful, he or she breathes in and breathes out. But in the instruction of step 2, it says he or she knows. Yeah. So in the first instruction, it only said being mindful. But in the second step, besides being mindful, we know something more. We know this pajanati here. Now we understand this word, this Pali word pajanati, to mean actually sampajanya, clear comprehension. Later, when we go to the clear comprehension section, then we will talk more about this this sampajanya, pajanati, sampajanya, in that section about clear comprehension. Okay, so step 1, we are establishing mindfulness, and then step 2, we know something more. So we have deeper concentration and stronger mindfulness about this breath object. Then let's go to the third step. Sabakaya patisamvedi asasi samiti sikkati. Making clear the entire in-breath body, I shall breathe in. Thus he or she makes effort, literally trains himself or herself. Sabakaya patisamvedi pasasi samiti sikkati. Making clear the entire out-breath body, I shall breathe out. Thus he or she makes effort. So let's see this part by part. First word, sabakaya patisamvedi. Let's divide this word into parts and we'll see what does it actually mean. Saba. Saba means entire. Entire means including the beginning, the middle, and the end. So that's the entire, no beginning, middle, and the end, the whole thing. Then kaya here refers to the meditative object, which is the in-breath and out-breath here, and it does not refer to the physical body here. The Pali word kaya can mean the physical body as well as a group, just like in English and the usage of like governmental body or corporate body. So that body meaning like a group. So here is the breath, the breath group, the in-breath and the out-breath here. Therefore, sabakaya here refers to the whole breath encompassing the beginning, the middle, and the end, the entire breath, sabakaya. And then patisamvedi. Patisamvedi here, Bhikkhu Bodhi translated this sentence as, I shall breathe in, experiencing the whole body. So patisamvedi, he translated as experiencing. And patisamvedi does mean experiencing, but it implies knowing clearly the entire breath body. So it is a deeper experience, not just a superficial or normal experience. Therefore, to clarify, Sayadaw Usilananda translated it as making clear the entire in-breath body, I shall breathe in. So he translated it as making clear, meaning making the entire breath known, making it plain, and trying to see it vividly. This explanation can also be found in the Visuddhimagga. So this patisamvedi means making clear or experiencing deeply. Now it is important here again to pay attention if we are reading only the translation without the Pali, that this sabakaya, it means the entire in-breath body in this case. And then in the next sentence, the entire out-breath body. And then it does not mean the whole physical body. If we just look at the English, then it can be a little bit confusing sometimes. If we see, I shall breathe in, experiencing the whole body, we can understand it to be breathing in and feeling experiencing the whole physical body. But here it means the entire breath body. We are still with the breath only. Okay, then we go to asasi sami. Asasisami means I shall breathe in, and pasasisami means I shall breathe out. You may notice that here, future tense are used. So why is future tense used here? Because it indicates a determination to continue practicing in this manner. Therefore, a future tense is used. Now, in the previous observation of the breath, in the first and second step, we did not need so much knowledge or so much effort to distinguish the breath, whether it is long or whether it is short. But here, from here on, because we have to know the entire breath from the very beginning and to the middle and to the end, we are not to lose it at any moment. So more effort and mindfulness are necessary in order to build concentration and understanding. So with every step, we are paying more attention, gaining more mindfulness and more concentration and understanding. Although we are to know the whole breath here, the entire breath here, we should not breathe more vigorously in order to see the breath more clearly. Because when we do so, we will tire ourselves in a very short time. So we should just breathe normally. If we don't see the breath very clearly, the beginning, the middle, and the end, in the beginning, it doesn't matter. We just keep watching and keep watching. Then when the mindfulness grows stronger and stronger, then we will be able to see the entire breath. Okay, so it continues with sikkati here, sikkati. Sikkati means, literally means training. So we do this training this way. And Sayadaw Usilananda translated it as make effort, emphasizing that effort is necessary to train ourselves in order to be able to see the entire breath from the beginning to the middle and to the end. So our mindfulness of the breath develops further and it will become more natural. Although we have to aware that whether it is in breath or out breath, whether it is long or short, and also we are not to lose the beginning nor the middle nor the end. It may sound like it is like there is a lot to do, no? It may sound a little bit difficult, but when the mindfulness effort and also concentration becomes stronger, it will become very natural. Very naturally, the mind will be able to see whether it is an in-breath or out-breath, whether it is long and short, and then we'll also be able to see the entire breath with easily. So that means at this stage, the practice have shifted more towards a Dhamma effort. In Pali, it's called the Dhamma Piyapara, rather than Pugala Piyavara, rather than personal effort. It's becoming more natural. It is just like when we are driving. In the beginning, when we are learning to drive, and then there is a lot of things that we have to be aware of or to pay attention to. We have to turn this and we have to see which gear, and then with car is coming, the mirror and everything, and it can feel very overwhelming in the beginning. But later on, when we practice, then driving becomes very natural. The body already knows what to do. Like it's almost like automatic. We can even enjoy the view or have a chat with the person sitting next to us. So it's in the same way when we are gaining more mindfulness and concentration, then we are gaining more experience with this meditative object, which is the breath, and the mind will naturally becomes more at ease with the object, and it will see it very easily, very naturally. Okay, then let's go to the fourth step. In the fourth step, it says, Pasambayam kaya sankaram asasi samiti sikkati. Calming the gross in-breath, literally, a body-conditioned object. I shall breathe in, thus he or she makes effort. So let's see it part by part here. Kaya sankaram is translated by Sayadaw, gross in-breath, which literally, it means body-conditioned object. Kaya, body, sankara. Sankara, this word is a difficult word in the Pali language because there is a lot of meaning depending on the context. In this case, this sankara, it means something that is being conditioned. And conditioned by what? Kaya. So something that is conditioned by the body. So why does it say so? That's because breath is said to be caused by consciousness or by the mind. It is chitta jawayo dhatu, so mind-produced wind element. But without the physical body, there cannot be any breath also. So although it is caused by the mind, the breath depends on the body for its arising. Therefore, it is called kaya sankhara, a thing, something which is conditioned by the body. And in some other contexts, sankhara can mean different things. For example, it can mean volition, which we call karma, as in the teaching of the dependent origination. That sankhara means karma or volition. And sometimes it means the 50 mental factors headed by volition, just as when we saw the 5 aggregates right now, the sankhara kanda, that sankhara that refers to the 50 mental factors other than vedana and sanya. And in other cases, sankhara can also mean conditioned thing. For example, sabbe sankhara anicca. All conditioned things are impermanent. So in that case, that sankhara means everything that is conditioned. And sometimes it can also mean encouraging or prompting. As in the Abhidhamma term, there are chittas that are called sasankarika and asankarika. No? So in that case, that sankhara means encouraging or prompting. So if it is too much for you, this Pali term, then just forget about it at the moment. We just have to understand that it means the body conditioned object, which means the breath itself. But for those who know these other Pali terms, then it might be interesting to know all these different meanings, no, according to context. Anyway, here, kaya sankhara means the breath, because it is a thing that is conditioned by the body, so therefore it is called kaya sankhara here. But it only means the breath here, the object that we are looking at. Now, even in this sutta, there are many different translations. Some translate it to bodily functions, and some other translation as activities of the body, bodily formation, bodily functions, or etc. So there are many different translations. But here, Sayadaw Silananda very clearly explained that this kaya sankhara means just the breath. And it should be taken as the gross breath here, because it says calming the breath. No? So what kind of breath? So it is the gross breath that needs to be calmed down. So therefore here we take it to be the gross in-breath or the gross out-breath. Now let's go to the word pasabhayam, calming. Now this expression, calming the gross in-breath, should not be taken to mean that the meditator should deliberately calm down, inhibit, or still the breath. It only means that when the breath naturally by itself becomes very subtle, then meditators are to try hard or pay more attention and apply more effort in order to observe even the very subtle breath. That's the meaning of this calming the gross in-breath and out-breath. Now, the breath is a very interesting object. It is not like other meditation objects, which becomes clearer and clearer when with the increase in concentration and understanding. With other objects such as the earth kasina, the earth disc, when meditators progress further and further, the objects becomes clearer and clearer in the mind of the meditator. But for the breath, when we gain concentration, the breath actually becomes subtler and subtler and more difficult to perceive. When the breath becomes so subtle, sometimes we may even thought that, is there any breath at all? Then we may even think that maybe it's gone. There is no more breath. Am I breathing? So at that time, Sayadaw Usilananda, he explained that, as mentioned in the commentaries, at such time, some meditators, because they might become afraid when they don't find breath anymore, they may think, what happened to me? Am I dead? No? So Sayadaw said, it is mentioned in the commentary that at such time, meditators should say to themselves that I'm not dead, I'm not drowned, I'm still alive, but I cannot perceive the breath because they are too subtle, and my concentration and understanding are not keen and developed enough. Therefore, I must develop them more, pay more attention to the meditation object, and try to perceive this subtle breath. So when we continue with our effort and gain more understanding also, we'll be able to perceive the breath however subtle they may become. So that is the meaning of the calming for the gross breath and the calming the gross in breath and calming the gross out breath. Now, as the mind becomes stronger with more mindfulness and more concentration, we will be able to see the subtle breath from the beginning to the middle and to the end. So the entire subtle breath also, we can see that. It is said that to achieve this kind of deep concentration, the mind must be free from uddhacca and kukucca, so free from restlessness and remorse. And it is called vipatisara in Pali, literally means not remembering back negatively. That is because without restlessness and remorse, the mind is clear. And also, this concentration is accompanied by pamoja, joy, piti, rapture, passaddhi, tranquility, and sukha, pleasant feeling also. So if we are able to be aware of this subtle breath in this way for a long time, say for 2 or 3 hours, then one's concentration will become even deeper and deeper. And eventually, one may experience the nimitta. This sign may appear to the mind of the meditator. And for the breath object, it is said that according to the temperament or the personality or inclination of the individual, the nimitta may appear very differently in the different individuals. So sometimes some people may perceive this sign to be like a smoke, or sometimes some people like clouds, or it can be stretches of a cobweb, or maybe it will be like a cotton wool, or even a raft of flowers, or a light or a bright star. So depending on the meditator, these different nimitta may arise in the mind of the person. Now, for those of you who are not very familiar with the process of samatha meditation and the object of each stage, I will just briefly explain about it. When we first start to meditate, we take the breath as the object and we pay attention to the breath only. Then after some time, when the mind gains concentration, a preliminary sign, which is called parikamma nimitta, may appear in the mind. Sometimes this nimitta, it may just be the breath itself, or it may be, as Paul Sayadaw said, for many meditators, it can appear something like a grayish smoke, something like that. Then we continue to practice, and when the 5 hindrances becomes weaker and the 5 jhana factors become stronger, the sign will become or will appear clearer and clearer in the mind of the meditator. And at this stage, the sign is called ugaha nimitta, sometimes translated as memorized sign or learned sign. Then we continue to practice and practice. At one point, when the 5 hindrances are totally suppressed and the mind is very well concentrated, the sign becomes even brighter. The nimitta becomes very stable. It is said that in the first 2 stages, that nimitta may appear and it may disappear, or it may be shaky. But when it comes to this stage, it becomes very, very bright and stable. And this nimitta is called the patibhaga nimitta, the counterpart sign. At this point, the mind of the meditator will naturally focus on this nimitta instead of the breath. So now this nimitta becomes the object of the meditation and not the breath anymore, but this very bright light. So the meditator concentrate on this light and continue the practice of the meditation. The person continue staying with this nimitta for longer and longer. And at some point, the jhana mental process may arise and the person will attain absorption, will attain jhana. So this is how samatha is being developed. Of course, now we say it in like less than 30 seconds, the whole thing, but it might take much longer time for us during the practice, but it will go through these stages. Now, for more details about this nimitta and the different stages of samatha development, you can find more information in video number 62 in the Anatomy of the Mind. So I will not repeat it here. Then we'll first go back to the ānāpāna object here. Okay, so once the meditator can maintain the first jhana for some time, so this Patibhaga nimitta arises in the mind, the meditator take that as an object and attained absorption and jhana, and then the meditator stay with that object, stay with the jhana for let's say 2 or 3 hours, and when they emerge from that jhana, then now it is a time for them to switch to vipassana. So for samatha yanika, that means a person who first developed jhana, the ānāpāna samadhi, absorption concentration, which is developed by the jhana, becomes the base for their vipassana. And if a person is a vipassana yanika, that means they do not first develop jhana. In this case, because there is no jhana, so instead of absorption concentration, khanika samadhi, momentary concentration, which is as strong as upachara samadhi, access concentration, that is the type of concentration that is just before absorption concentration for jhana, that will become the base for the vipassana, for vipassana yanika, those who practice purely vipassana without jhana. So whether it is for samatha yanika or for vipassana yanika, the way to develop concentration with the ānāpāna object, as mentioned in this sutta, is the same. So with these 4 steps that we just saw, being mindful, first just with mindfulness in the in-breath and out-breath, then we know the long, whether it is long or short, then we know the whole breath, the entire breath, making the beginning, middle, and the end, everything very clearly we know. And then we know even the very, very subtle breath also, we know them in this way. So that's how concentration is being built. Okay, so up till here, with this 4 steps, it is possible to develop ānāpāna samadhi, absorption concentration for jhana, or simply to build up continuous mindfulness, which leads to khanika samadhi for vipassana. Let's take a quick look, like a summary of the practice up till now, what happened. So first, it said we find a suitable place, we sit in a comfortable posture with the upper body upright, then we direct the mindfulness to the breath, the meditation object here. Then we just develop mindfulness of the in-breath and out-breath. Then we know whether it's long or short. Then we know the whole breath, the entire breath, and even very subtle breath. So up to this point, the instructions are for building samadhi. Then the Buddha gives a simile to the meditators so that they can understand the teaching more clearly. So it says, let's go directly to, because of time, let's go directly to the English version. As a skillful turner or his apprentice, making a long turn, he knows I make a long turn. Or making a short turn, he knows I make a short turn. So that means for let's say a carpenter, some person who does woodwork, so with some kind of machine, like this kind of machine, when they want to make something big, say like a drum, then the operator have to make a long turn on the machine. And when he wants to make something small, then he make a short turn. So the operator or the carpenter, he must know, because of what he's making, he must be aware of whether the turn that he's making is long or whether it is short. So in the same way, meditators are to know when they are breathing in long, they are to know that I breathe in long. When they're breathing in short, they are to know that I breathe in short, and whether the breath is in breath or out breath, right? Then after that, the second step, third step, and fourth step, as we mentioned previously. So up to here, it is with the example given in this sutta. Okay, so we have finished with the instruction for the development of samadhi. And from the next paragraph in Pali, we will start the instruction for vipassana. So from this point onwards, we shift our contemplation from samatha to vipassana by changing the focus from ānāpāna concept, from the in or out, long or short, or from concept to ultimate reality. of these ānāpāna objects. So how to do that? Now we will see it in the next part, and we will continue with vipassana next week. Okay, so perfect. Now today we are not running over time, and I think we still have a few minutes for some questions if you have any.
Thanks, Heidi. So I'm not clear about the making clear the entire breath body. Does it mean we follow the breath until inside the body, or but we are supposed to focus on the upper lips, right? So
yes,
what does it mean?
Okay, I will clarify it here. So the entire breath means the beginning, the middle, and the end of the breath. Yeah, of the breath. So it does not mean, as you said, we should not follow the breath going inside the body or outside the body. We are only to focus in this area, right? So the entire breath only means that we know when it starts, when it is there, and when it is gone. During the whole period, we do not lose it anytime, because sometimes when the mindfulness is not strong enough, we know we're breathing in, but the mind is not sharp enough to see the beginning of it, or the middle of it, or the end of it. Yeah, so we may lose the beginning, and when we are mindful, it is already in the middle, or it's already going. Yeah. So that means that it's not the entire breath yet. So when we are able to see the whole process from beginning, middle, and the end of the in-breath, and the beginning and the middle and the breath and the end of the out-breath, that means the making clear the entire breath body. Yeah.
Thank you.
Right. Welcome. Okay. Yes. Edith.
I was just wondering, so I'm not experienced in this kind of practice, but I was just wondering what happens if any other object comes up. Are we ignoring, or is it should be ignored completely, our thoughts, anything else?
Depends if you are practicing samatha or if you are practicing vipassana. If the aim is to practice samatha, so we are to build, let's say, deep concentration until jhana, in that case, we are to ignore every other thing. Just focus on the breath. If the mind is gone, just come back to the breath. The mind is gone, just come back to the breath. Doesn't matter whatever other thing is not the object of meditation. That's for samatha. But if we are to practice vipassana, then it is different. Then we know the breath, and then if the mind is now gone to something else, well, let's say not gone. Let's say that the mindfulness is aware of something else that is arising at the present moment. If we are practicing vipassana, it's okay that we look at the other objects also, observe other objects also. But if we want to develop deeper concentration before doing vipassana, then it is even not until jhana, we'll just build up concentration before vipassana. Then in that case, it is also recommended to keep the mind only on the breath until the concentration is strong. Then we open to other objects. It depends.
And you do that by, forcefully bringing the mind back to the breath, to the area of the nose, right? So because there could be like very distracting thoughts coming up all the time, so just forcefully like ignore it and go back.
Now, if you use the word forcefully, it's a little bit too strong, I think, because if the mind is aware that those kinds of thoughts arise, if you just don't pay attention to it and just bring back the attention to the meditation object, it's just directing the mind back to the object that we are intending at that moment. But if we say forcefully, it feels like mind come like that, then it feels like that there is too much effort, or there is a little bit more of maybe aversion to the other things that is arising. So at that time, maybe it is better to observe that aversion towards those other objects. And then when the mind is calm, then we can do whatever object, samatha or even vipassana, whichever thing.
I get it. Thank you.
Welcome. Okay, yes, Zenan.
Actually, the number 4 stage, coming the cross of breath, I'm not quite understand the word of coming, and then after that you did mention the word of determination. So I just want to know clearly determinations and effort, are they the two different kind of mental factors? Determination will support the effort to be more continuously and more to support the effort the ongoing. Then this led me to want to differentiate more about the persistence, the determination, and endurance. Because you also that during the sitting, if the leg is very pain, then we endure, we put the pain for a long time. This is not the actual right practice. I do think of Buddha before enlightenment. It also go for the wrong practice, like not eating for a long time, for many, and then to act out.
Zenan,
Yeah.
I think it's better we do not go expand and go further and further and further and further at this point. If it's okay for you, may I just clarify the 4th step for you first? Then we will go to okay. So for the 4th step, calming the gross in breath and gross out breath simply means that we have to, as you said, it says determination, because it's used future tense there, right? So that means we only have to be determined that we will continue observing the breath even if it becomes very subtle. So that gross in breath, calming the gross in breath just means that when we are building up concentration, we are being more mindful, the mind is more concentrated, then the breath becomes more and more and more subtle, and sometimes very difficult to perceive. Yeah, because when the mind is calm, the breathing is also calm, right? The calmer the mind, the breath becomes calmer and calmer, and sometimes it's even so subtle that we think it's lost. Like, is there even breath? No, so subtle. So here, the determination on the 4th step, it means that even the breath is so subtle, we are not to give up. Well, no, there is no breath. No, we are not to give up. We have to continue and to watch and continue to build up our mindfulness so that even it is so subtle, we can still observe it and make it clear. So that it becomes clear. We can see the beginning, the middle, and the end of even a very subtle breath. So that means the mind becomes even more, mindfulness becomes even more powerful and more concentrated, no? Because we can see even the very subtle, even almost unperceivable breath. So that's the 4th step. Yeah. So then you mentioned about whether effort and determination is 2 different cettasika. Then yes, according to the Abhidhamma, adhimokkha is determination and effort is viriya. But when they arise together, they work together. No, they have the same goal. They have the same purpose. Now, everyone, I said everyone, meaning all the cettasikas that arise together with that citta, everyone is working towards concentrating and building mindfulness with that object. So one support the other. Yeah. So all of the mental factors that arise together, they all work together to do the same thing. They collaborate.
Okay, so it doesn't matter whether it's wholesome or unwholesome, or it's right or wrong.
It must be wholesome. So if we are meditating, it must be wholesome. Because if it is unwholesome, that it cannot be called right concentration. No, it cannot be called meditation. If we are concentrated, let's say on an object of craving, then it is not. We cannot call that right concentration. We cannot call that meditation. Right? It must be a right.
I mean, determination is beautiful mental factors, or is a nature, or is a.
In this case, if it is associated with the mind that is meditating, it is beautiful, because it is ethically variable. If it associates with an unwholesome mind, then at that time it is unwholesome. If it is associated with a wholesome mind, then it is wholesome. But
So
it
it depends.
never arises by itself. So we cannot say that whether it is wholesome or not. Depends on the other members of the group, no?
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Understand. Okay, welcome. Yes, Kanti.
I want to ask you if you could you please be kind to remind us, because this is connected with Edith just mentioning. She was mentioning about like what happens because at the beginning the thought or thinkings or disturbing thoughts are present in our practice. I just remember, because when I used to practice, I always need to remind myself that the proximate cause of samadhi, of a peaceful mind, is piti.
Joy.
Yes, is joy. So I said I need to say, Charana, could you please to remind like characteristic, manifestation, and proximate cause? Because at the beginning you mentioned that this is a way also to know
For
these
samadhi.
things. Yes.
I am not sure if I remember them by heart, or I have to look. No, I don't think I remember everything by heart. So I have to give you these 4 devices for samadhi next session. Okay.
I don't remember either. I also just only remember piti. I need to be happy, so concentration will be like naturally happy. No, just fake, like really feeling like the peace and the joy. Yes. To make samadhi.
Sometimes we fall into the trap of over efforting, or like Zenan just said, like endure, or like just bite the teeth and go through and concentrate. But actually that might not be the right way, because for concentration, as I mentioned a little bit earlier in many suttas, the Buddha mentioned that a mind that is at ease and that is joyful is conducive for concentration. And then just look at the 5 jhana factors. Piti, sukha, vitaka, vichara, piti, sukha, ekagata, no? So the 5 jhana factors are vitaka, initial application, sustained application, vitaka, vichara, piti, joy, sukha, happiness, and ekagata, and one-pointedness. So you see, there is happiness and there is joy. So when one is in jhana, the person is actually feeling quite good. So that's why they said the jhana is very, like, once you experience that, then you will see that is a very, very pleasant feeling also, no? So that's why without being joyful, without being happy, one cannot attain that very deep concentration. So that like clenching the teeth and going through, it's maybe going to the other direction. All right. So thank you, Kanti. Yes, Gunardi.
Yes. Thank you, Heidi. So in the 4th step in the ānāpāna, from the 1st step until the 4th step, is there any guidelines when to move forward from step 1 to step 2 to step 3 and so on?
Yes. According for samatha, right? For jhana. Yeah, for jhana. I don't remember exactly very well, but I think Paok Sayadaw in one of his instructions, he says that if we stay in step 1 for over 30 minutes, at least 30 minutes, if the mind is being able to stay with just in-breath and out-breath, concentrated on the in-breath and out-breath for over 30 minutes, then we move to the 2nd step. And then we continue staying in the 2nd step for a period of time. And Paok Sayadaw said that some meditators might even see nimitta in the 2nd step. So when they are observing the long breath and the short breath, sometimes they might even see a nimitta. But if you stay there for, let's say, for an hour, 2 hours, and there is no nimitta, then we move to the 3rd step. And when you go to the 1st step in the same way, you might see nimitta. And if you don't see nimitta, then you have been staying in that step, and then the mind is clearly observing the entire breath for some period of time, then you move to the 4th step in that way. So of course, if you see the nimitta, then you focus on the nimitta, and then jhana will arise at some point, no? Like that.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry if this is too basic a question, but I'm hoping you can help me understand dukkha a little bit better. Earlier on, when we were talking about the Vedanas, the mental feelings, you described there being two categories of unpleasant. One which was purely mental, dhammanasa, and then you used the term dukkha there as unpleasant that's related to the body. How is that different than dukkha as one of the three marks of existence? When we talk about dukkha in terms of impermanence, non-self, and dissatisfaction, does that dukkha also mean dissatisfaction in the body, or does it have a bigger sense, please?
Yes, it does. Thank you for your question. Let's go back to the classification of dukkha. When we divide the Vedana into 5, then we have somanasa, sukha, domanasa, dukkha, and upekkha, no? So in that case, that dukkha specifically means the unpleasant mental feeling that arise through the body sense. Okay? So that means that in that context. Then when we move on to the 3 category of sukha, dukkha, adukkha, sukha, in that case, that dukkha, that word includes purely mental, so domanasa also included, purely mental and the body, the unpleasant feeling due to the body sense, they include both of them. Yeah. And then when everything becomes dukkha, so that in that sense, that means wider meaning. In that case, it refers to everything is unsatisfactory. It is dukkha in the sense that it is always changing and it is not self. Because of that, they are dukkha. But in the 4 noble truths, the first noble truth and the first noble truth that there is suffering, dukkha exists. In that dukkha, it means it includes everything. No, dukkha exists. Everything is dukkha. No, and then, but if we go to ultimate reality to see this dukkha, it is still a Vedana. When we do studies on the 4 noble truths, then we see the ultimate reality that is referred into the first noble truth, the ultimate reality that is referred to the second noble truth, and the ultimate reality that is referred in the third and the fourth noble truth. And in that case, that dukkha is still the Vedana, is still Vedana. The first one that is mentioned there. But it means all conditioned things are dukkha in this sense. But it is still a mental feeling. Unsatisfactoriness. Is it a little bit more clear? Just a little bit.
Yeah, I understand the word has multiple senses, but it's all mental feeling in the big picture also. So
yes.
Appreciate your explanation.
You're welcome.
I wish to ask for the ānāpāna in the aspect of practicing samatha. So at some stage, when it is stabilized, then it goes into the inquiry part. So my question is, what exactly is the purpose of building up that concentration? So okay, perhaps I wish to ask, is it possible that in establishing that concentration, because everything becomes very refined, rather than it becomes, it makes the awareness, that concentration makes awareness more sensitive, it has the adverse effect of it makes the mind kind of go into the enjoyment of the
calmness or the stableness.
Because I have dabbled, I wouldn't say I've done it right. Then I find at some stage of that development, the mind sometimes stays in that condition of everything is kind of okay. So maybe I'm practicing it wrong, but generally I practice the vipassana first. So maybe when after vipassana go to practice this, maybe it's still something is not. So maybe you can help say something on that. Thank you.
I think for your case, if you are not intending to practice samatha, then it is not necessary to stay only with the breath. for you. I mean, if you do not intend to practice samatha first and then vipassana, if you want to just practice directly vipassana, then it might not be necessary that you just stay with the breath. Because when you know the breath, or as you said, then mindfulness can know many other things as well, right? Not just only the breath. Because you mentioned when you are only with the breath, then mindfulness becomes a little bit like blurry, it's not so sharp anymore, it doesn't see other things. So in that case, for you, I think it is better if you don't focus on the ānāpāna. Just open and see whatever object it arises, just observe that. It might be suitable as how I listen to you. But for those person who wants to build samatha first, like build a very deep concentration, it is also not useless, just for us to understand, because that concentration, when it is really strong, then the mind will be able to clearly see the nature of the ultimate reality. Without concentration, wisdom cannot arise. Without mindfulness, without concentration, we cannot see the ultimate reality clearly as it is. So therefore, that concentration is not useless, but it depends. For example, when you say, when you are observing the breath and then the mind becomes very calm, then for you, if you think that sometimes the mind goes to enjoy that calmness, then for you now the meditation object is not that the breath anymore. It's that enjoyment, that's craving, lobha. So you should watch lobha at that time. Switch to lobha and don't look at the breath anymore. And then you see how the mind works, no? So the mind can attach to everything. So we learn something about what's going on, yeah? So we learn about this craving, how it gets attached to pleasant feeling. Then we observe the lobha. Then when the lobha is gone, then if you wish, you continue with the breath or you continue with other object. But whenever you notice something is happening, some defilement is coming in, then watch the defilement first. Yeah. So we step back. Because it according to how you are explaining, you are clearly seeing what the mind is doing when it is like it's becoming blur or it's enjoying the calmness, and so make that your object. Yeah. All right. Okay. Yes, Lawanga.
Hi, Heidi. I just wanted to know, in the commentaries, does it mention like how long it takes to show a preliminary sign or a nimitta?
It depends on the individual.
If practiced properly?
It depends on the individual. It depends on the parami also, whether the person has practiced samatha before in previous life. If they have practiced already, sometimes some people, it is mentioned that some people can get even the patibhaga nimitta very quickly. So for some people, if they have paramis, if they have practiced samatha for many lifetimes, then it is easy for them. If a person have never practiced, is just starting, then it might take longer time. So it really is individual. We cannot say for how long.
Understood. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. All right, so I think it's time. If you still have any questions, you are welcome to send an email or you can type it in the chat box. I'll leave the Zoom on for another 5 minutes or so you can type in the question and then I will look at it. If there is still anything, then we will talk about it next time. Okay, so thank you very much, everyone, for joining today. So let's close by first dedicate our effort for the attainment of Nibbana, and then we share merits with all beings. Okay. Itam no punyam nibbana paceyo hotu. Itam no punyam nibbana paceyo hotu. Itam no punyam nibbana paceyo hotu. Itam no punyam satanam bhajima. Itam no punyam satanam bhajima. Itam no punyam satanam bhajima. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Okay, thank you, everyone. We'll see you next week.
Thank you, Heidi.
Thank you, Heidi.
Have a nice day.
Welcome. See you.
Bye.